Hi guys, for those new to the channel, I am MakerX and I have a special guest, Joshua Volsey, who is hiding behind the mask and this, as you can tell, it's a good looking mask. It suits him as well. I want to get one like that. So, Josh, but I cannot, I cannot understand anything you say.
Can you hear me, Arson? Can you
I
hear me?
barely hear you. Actually, you know what? Let's do another test. I have a mask of my own, but I'll need to take the headphones off. So give me a
Okay.
second.
All right.
Can you hear me?
He'll probably hear you better than you hear me. Ah,
Dude,
This is our new normal now. This is
do you know what? I put this on and I a few seconds and I felt really hot already inside. Right. Okay. So everybody who is new, make sure you check out the part one of this video because we are doing multiple installments of the series, and because of the beer bug running around, which is the COVID-19, is just what we call it. It seems among the communities, the beer bug is commonly known. So, Josh, do you want to start off and open up? You said you wanted to say a few words, so feel free, go ahead, and we'll open up with that first.
yeah. I'd say just for people that are used to our normal format. Again, this is raw, uncensored. I might have a few interruptions just because right now I'm isolating and quarantining with my folks because they're high risk. So I'm here just making sure they stay out of trouble. And then on top of that, like we've been doing a lot of life hacks because over here in the States, we have a shortage of the N95 class masks that are used to filter out the particulates, the airborne bug. So I've been doing hacks, which is what you saw here, basically replacing with a regular respirator using vacuum filters. Because vacuum filters are meant to filter out particulates under a vacuum aerosol environment. So it's been a good substitute for the N95. We had a few tests. They've all been great. I've ran it by some medical people. They all said it was a really good alternative. So yeah, this is what I've been doing in my self-isolation free time, both working at home. So you might also hear me clack a little bit. Doing this and then doing the interviews. So this will be a fascinating, really real interview that you got going on here.
Really real interview. One more disclaimer, guys, as well, that there may be some random things occurring during the session as well. So just be aware of that as well, since we're doing 100% raw. It's the so-called, the minimalistic approach to the idea. But the main thing is that it's what about, about things that we're gonna be discussing to make sure that you get entertained and you get to listen to, us chat. And if, of course, there's gonna be a lag, we'll try to make sure we reset it, and give it a few seconds so we can get back to normal. Otherwise, I think we are good to go. So,
Cool.
previously we have discussed our pet peeves with Jurassic Park/World franchise status, so make sure you check that video out. I'll put it in the link, actually. And now we're just gonna be talking about a completely different topic this time. This time we're gonna be talking about the skin diagrams that Josh has put together, and that many other very good people have chipped in to help with the sourcing of information. Also wanted to quickly take an opportunity that part of it I wanted to dedicate in memory of the late Bonaparte, because he has passed away. Was it this year? I believe it was already this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, he passed away this year,
Yeah.
right before everything had happened
Yeah.
with the outbreak. But yeah, no, he passed away. I think last month. I think it was early February when he passed. It's so hard to recollect because
Yeah, it's been a lots of things been going on.
yeah.
So, the reason why I brought up Bonaparte is because he is the one who has described Carnotaurus, and this is one of the focus subjects on one of the skin diagrams. So that's how it's basically related, for those who haven't figured that out yet. So I will start by opening up the diagram of the red skin chart for Tyrannosaurus. So if you want, you can bring it on your screen as well. And I'll put it on my screen. And we have ourselves just down the bottom. So we're going to have to move that window a little bit when we need to. So Josh, we have already addressed it in one of the previous videos when we first introduced you to the channel. So I just think that maybe it's important to just simply start off by saying that maybe we can clear some misconceptions, you know, sometimes that people make comments about and there and then, and I can come across with some things that people say. Maybe it's a good idea to just bring up the common things that you see and common things that I see and just address them. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, sure. It astounds me there's misconceptions when I'm looking at the chart. I think this is one of the first charts we did. And I was worried about, like, maybe there's too much information. Maybe it's too cluttered. Turns out there wasn't enough information for people that still can't figure out how to read the chart. But yeah, no, we can definitely go through it as many times. Well, that's the good thing about video, because now that we go over it once and we keep getting the same questions parroted over and over again, we could just post the answer and be like, here.
Yeah, just
there's the answer.
Here's the answer. Here's the time code. All right here for you. So, do you want to start maybe with your side? Since you're the guest, you get to go first. So, what would you like to start off that you seem to find whenever people make the most commonly misconceptions? You know, things that you would like to address.
I think I'll start with the funniest one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It wasn't even with the T-Rex chart. It was with the charts in general. I think we posted it on the anniversary of Bonaparte passing away. And somebody posted it somewhere, and someone commented that the charts were inaccurate because the skeletal reconstructions were updated. And then I kind of looked at that for a while, trying to figure out what that individual was saying. And it turns out that's exactly what they were saying. They were commenting on the skeletal reconstruction on a chart that showed no skeletal reconstruction. So I kind of took that moment.
Was that basically the Abyssosaurid one, right?
Oh, it could have been any chart. None of them have skeletons.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. It applies to...
I'm just kind of blanket statement.
That actually applies to all of them.
But yeah, I kind of commented, like, I even asked them, like, this is a skin chart, right? It's not that's what it is. It's a skin chart. And that person did not reply. I think that was smart of that person once they figured out their folly. But that's kind of the more humorous, more kind of like left field claims we get. They're not even claims. They're just kind of like strange statements from a lot of these are kids. They're kids on the internet, and kids on the internet are kids. And so it's kind of just been amusing to kind of see who tries to play science on the internet and then just wildly get it wrong.
Yeah, just do like the spelling, with its scientific accuracy, like that word that Jeffrey likes to use. Not accuracy, like properly, but like accuracy.
Well, I mean, because Jeffrey's an English major, so the reason why I don't like that is there's something known as sentence structures that you teach a child when he's learning how to spell and do English. And so when you're new to English, you kind of spell things out phonetically so they can learn how to say it. So Jeffrey doing that is definitely a nod to kind of like, no, we got to teach these children like almost elementary grade phonetics to kind of just say one word, let alone how to apply that to an actual science. So yeah, I know what Jeffrey was doing. It was funny.
It was very funny. Yeah, it's always funny when he does that because he just finds the best ways to kind of stick it in. I wanted to do quickly? Just wanted to make sure that we are we're definitely recording. Okay, we're all good. Just want to make sure that we don't have to go back and re-record this whole thing again because a lot of it we're improvising as well. Yeah, because we needed your live reaction to my helmet as well. So. Okay, so what else have you encountered? Anything else in terms of... Because other than obviously the skeletal, which is wrong, which is absent, than that, is there anything else?
That's a true story, by the way. I'm not making that. I wish I could make this stuff up. No, that was a true story. That was a true...
I bet. I bet.
No, but the only other thing that I ran into was I'm not on DeviantArt. The same reason I'm not on Twitter. It does nothing productive for the science. If anything, I've seen more fights break out in those venues than anything really productive come from them. But we have a mutual friend that keeps bringing up DeviantArt claims. I don't know why. I've told the person just don't do it with me because I won't address them.
Yeah.
But they keep popping up, and then finally one person he shared it with me. And the difference of the charts is there's two different charts. Most people know this. Only the Tyrannosaur chart has two different charts. One's the official chart, which is everything that's been publicated or released or we have measurements for that can be tracked down. The other one is an unofficial chart.
Shall we switch to
that? Yeah, if you want to.
Yep, there it is.
And the differences between the charts is just that. There's described skin specimens and undescribed skin specimens. And somebody commented on the official chart, which was the red chart, why there weren't any skin that was yet to be described or has not been described yet. And why it doesn't match the skin that's been published. And I kind of sat there again and just kind of dissected the sentence, and I had to spell it out too. And I was like, so he's asking me why the undescribed skin doesn't match the described skin. Like, again, he's asking me why something that's not published doesn't match something that's been published.
So two different potential pieces of material, and basically the question just falls apart right there.
Yeah, well, it just kind of highlights a failure to understand, like, how the charts were constructed. Because most people, I've seen a lot of different charts. My charts have kind of started a trend of people making their own charts, kind of trying to use the same format to give the illusion of some kind of scientific gravitas. And some people just cite papers just to cite papers. We've seen this with some other reconstructions. They'll start citing papers, and we see the reconstruction, and it adheres to none of the papers being cited. So we don't know if that's just a really bad maneuver on their part to try to give the illusion of like, oh, it's accurate because the papers are listed, even though I didn't read any of them. Yep. So it's one of those things where it's like, no, there is a lot of work that went into these charts that we, like, I was slaving over months just to get the first chart done, which is why the charts take so long to make, because we're trying to proofread them and make sure everything is good with the measurements. We try to get the actual. Sorry, my brain's just fried.
Yeah, take your time.
We try to get the provenance of all the data that's included. So we try to proof it with all the professors. If we can, we try to reach out to people that have published the papers so they can actually look at the stuff and course correct it for us. The biggest one on the Tyrannosaur chart was that big hunkin' chunk of thoracic skin that we went to Curie about, Curie himself, which led to the interviews we did with Curie. And it very much helped us kind of understand, because we didn't want a case for misidentification either. And for that big chunk, which is huge, I have the printout here, and that's again how big it is against my head. So that piece we wanted to make sure was from a Tyrannosaur, and we contacted Curie because it was featured in Curie's book. We used his measurements. We made sure he validated the measurements. And then once we got that all signed off, then we included it into the chart. But that's the difference, that we're getting Tyrannosaur experts. And we're getting people that work in the appropriate field for the dinosaur being featured. And we're also proofing the material that's being published either in paper form or literature form, and that can be tracked down to the appropriate scientists to make sure that they're the ones that sign off on it. Versus a lot of these kids are just kind of grabbing stuff from blogs, going to the little subsection where it's like papers reference, and they just kind of copy paste, throw it on a chart, and they're like, okay, we're cool. This is as good as the other one. There's a lot of that's why we have the contribution and the review section, because those are all the scientists that have both the artists that contributed and then the additional scientists that also did the review as well. So that's the part that everybody kind of glazes over, like, oh, well, those are just scientists. I'm going to pick scientists that appeal to my narrative, whatever narrative I'm trying to push for a science. And it's like, no, we made sure we got Tyrannosaur experts for a Tyrannosaur chart, just like we try to get Albiosaurid experts for the Carnotaurus chart, and then just like we try to get Stegosaur experts for the Stegosaur chart.
I will also want to give the attention to the people that, because you know how on my channel I frequently make a very clear distinction between what it means when the argument is scientific. It's not about whether it's said by a scientist, it's about what is actually being said and how well is it supported by science. And what you guys will notice that every single bit here, you see how every single section where it says the material here, and then it points like a little bit of an arrow into the box sections in all over the perimeter of the chart, right? So we have them all framed up, and we've got them all listed here. Publications. You see, it says Carey et al. 2003, I believe. Yeah, it's 2003. Then Carr et al. 2017. So all of these things you will see, they are all from somewhere that we have, that have been published in one place or another, so they don't just come out of nowhere, or at least it's physical fossil evidence that is verifiable. Okay, so it's either addressed somewhere, but most of them you see that they're addressed by the paperwork. They're not just based on blog posts or people's opinions or what people said and that's it. This is not where it ends. You can all trace it back yourselves. This is the most important thing that makes it a scientific argument, because this is something that is actually featured in scientific publications. This is something that you can yourselves go out and verify as a third party, which is one of the primary requirements to be able to, make a good argument. That regardless of who says what, you're able to verify it objectively against a certain evidence. So there we go.
Yeah, no, the way we laid out the chart was it's very cross-referenced. So I mean, it's very easy to get through the references, and even like with every skin section that we even include the paper right below it, and then on top of that we give a short description, either something that we pull directly from the paper that's describing the skin, or a much more simplified summary. And then we include the actual measurement, and we actually switched to a centimeter measurement system, which is more universal for paleontology. This one was put in inches and square feet because at the time we were using this to debunk a lot of myths. The biggest myth was that, all the T-Rex skin was the size of this coin. Yeah. Which we since shown just why we have a total length of all the skin in the sections. Like just for the third sections up in the abdominal area, we have like over 14 inches. That's over a foot. That alone is bigger than just this one skin section, which is also accounted for. So you now have 2 feet of skin, and so on and so on. That
picture frame you held, by the way, is almost as big as a small laptop. In fact, it might be bigger than a small laptop.
Oh, yeah. Like a tablet, at least. So it all comes together pretty easily, how it's all added up together. And now with the argument kind of buried, as is all these false arguments that have been popping up, which is strange. The stranger thing for me is kind of the presence of the charts is great. I'm glad that we did them. But the reasoning behind the presence of why we even had to make the charts is what was more scary, which was like, it was more the human condition, that it was so hard to grasp a very blatant scientific fact when it goes against whatever the culture is at the time. And that's what was more fascinating to me. It's like we're doing these charts to just do counterculture, not even really talk about any science that was being debated. But it was just counterculture. That was all that was really birthed the charts. It's like we have false statements being put out there and then backed by, blogs and all this other fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of sitting there like, why is this being accepted other than nobody really is telling what the actual facts are? And so it was like, all right, well, let's just do it. And then we did, and then we got praise from Larson, we got praise from Curie, We got praise from a lot of people. A lot of people told me to sell the charts. I told them it was pro bono project, so it's just out there for people to have. So it was a very fascinating thing.
Yeah, but that's the other thing is as well. If it's quite a good material for printing, if you wanted to do like they have sometimes they have these really nice big pictures, of a collection of encyclopedias or sometimes artwork, and you can do really nice, foldable posters inside with these charts. As an idea, I'm just saying, these things they can work very well into this.
No, yeah, I mean, if someone out there, Thomas Carr is writing his book. If Thomas wants to include the chart, I mean, he would know more about the legality, because I know a lot of the papers that we included here. It's good, like this goes into other paleopolitics, but the short of it is papers are meant to be kind of like open access for people to do research and science, and a lot of these papers have kind of turned toward turning a profit. So we do have papers that are included that you do have to pay for with a paywall. Mm-hmm. So that goes into the legality as to why this can't really be replicated for sale or profit on my end. But Thomas would know more about that. But I mean, yeah, this chart would be a great addition in terms of like a fold out to see all the skin and everything. So yeah, it's one of those things. Hold on real fast.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you have the mask? I want to see the mask. What you got? Okay. Yeah. We're doing quarantine stuff on the side as well. It's so hard to find these masks. That's why I was building these that you saw in the because we have a legit mask shortage. My family that I'm helping out here with our quarantine, they're out there trying to get masks. Let me see.
They give you these, and then.
Let me see. Oh, it is only one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's $10 for the filter one. The non-filter ones are the $5.
Yeah. So yeah, just to let you know how much of a shortage we have, like this is what they're selling at our local hardware store. I bought a pack of these. It used to come in a pack of 2, and they're already charging the same price for a pack of 1.
Well, that's expected, I guess. They would do that.
So, but it's also kind of a shady thing to do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And the reason people are asking, I'm sure people are asking, why are we buying more masks if we have masks? And it's because people don't understand the masks have a usage life. So you can only use the mask. Ideally, you're only supposed to use the N95 for 72 hours before the filters get clogged and they're useless. Mm-hmm. People in the medical field have been using them beyond that because they just don't have supplies. So I've been trying to I've been going out, and my younger sister have been going out because my parents are high risk to get them additional masks as they run out of masks over our 2-week quarantine. So it's an insane amount of just. Again, why we're doing more permanent solutions using vacuum filters and using our craftiness, But anyways, skin charts,
yeah. Well, I mean, be as firm in the approach. Sometimes permanent solution to a temporary problem actually works well. So. Yeah. So let's hope. Okay. Shall we go back to the second one? So basically, guys, if you notice, I'm going to quickly flip between by doing the next arrow button and previous. So you notice that the previous whatever you see in the red chart is still there in the green chart, but the orange highlighted pieces are the ones that are not included in the red chart. That's what basically was addressed earlier on. And these are the things that are only possible to verify if you go directly to the collection, in the museums where they are held. And this one here is, as referenced by Curie from the interview as well, was placed in a museum collection in, I think the main museum collections that they have are all in the capital of Mongolia, which is Ulaanbaatar, I think. And that's where you probably will find them. It's one of the museums there because there's at least 2 that I know of that exist there. So
yeah, and then touching up on that too real fast, because again we have these competing charts that are being done just for, I don't know, but the provenance they're using is again blogs and Twitter references and YouTube videos. We have Curie verifying these skin impressions exist and they belong to a Tyrannosaur. So with that level of providence, where we have a direct confirmation from a scientist who saw them, versus Wikipedia, we have enough justification to include them in the official chart. The only reason we did is because we're setting the bar. We're also setting the standard for the amount of scientific steps and verification that are needed to include any information in our charts. So even it's one of those things where people have accused us of like, well, you're doing this just because you can, and that's not the idea. Like we have a lot of things we could do. We're choosing not to do them because we're legit trying to make sure the science is airtight. When any of these charts come under scrutiny, which they have been, anytime a chart's been attacked, we've been very quick about just like, all right, well, give us your reasoning and give us your line of evidence and compare it to what's been referenced in the chart, and the arguments fall apart because we take that amount of quality control. Like we have a high standard of quality control that goes with all of our charts.
And you know what's funny? I may have told this story in our group discussions, but I will tell this as well here for the people who are viewing the video. That's I think it was about a month or a couple months back. I don't know. It's a video for another time, sometime I will make, maybe not. It's not really worth too much attention, other than just for pure literal lols. So what happened? What happened was I was on Facebook, and I believe it was our mutual acquaintance and friend Aram as well, from Armenia, from Yerevan, the artist Aram. He's got into some heated argument with some guys.
Yeah.
and they basically just went back and forth, and then one of the guys kept saying the whole thing. It's like, as if he was repeating like when you play the game and you have the NPCs that respond in specific ways and they are very limited phrases, and he kept kind of being like, this is scientific information, this is scientific reconstruction. It was concerning the Saurian US T-Rex model, whatever, but that was not even the point what it was about. The point is how he kept repeating it exactly the same way. Maybe the language was a thing and he just kind of copied and pasted it or whatever, but it just came out funny as a result, obviously. So I just went in there and I just asked him, hello, excuse me, like what in your opinion makes it a scientific reconstruction? And then he said something, and he's like, I believe this and this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's all fair and square, I get that. But please answer my question. You haven't answered my question. What exactly makes it scientific? He ignored it and went on just to go for Aram, basically, just try to do some nonsense, some bullshit, basically. And then I just went, excuse me, sir, like excuse me, can I please get you to answer my question? Are you avoiding it? Like, I'm pretty sure it's very simple. Can you just answer what makes it scientific? You said it's scientific reconstruction. I just want to understand what you think it means. Do we think it means the same thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what happened next? He blocked me.
Yeah, that's the smart thing to do, right? That'll win an argument.
Of course. That's totally gonna prove me wrong 100%. Destroyed, destroyed.
Oh, man.
But yeah, guys, that's basically what the world we live in. Me and the crew, basically, we've all been doing the same thing over and over. If you start asking certain questions and they don't like to answer them, it's like a cult mentality. You cannot ask the question. If you ask the question, they just they either attack you, or if they see that's not working, they'll just block you.
Yeah, no, and I feel like we're even making it more complicated than it really is, because even say, like, if you ask certain questions, like, there's no real magic formula to win an argument. It's just like, ask them to give you the proof. And that's usually where the argument falls apart, because you said something very key in the beginning of your argument where the guy said, and I quote, I believe. And that's a great, I believe a lot of things. I believe that, I don't know, like, I believe I can see in certain spectrums of light. That's cool for a self-belief of mine, but unless it's proven scientifically, that doesn't really hold any water. And it's one of those things where it's like these guys are like, well, they're reading things that fit the narrative of what they believe.
Yeah, the thing to understand and remember is that the difference between belief and fact is that fact is there regardless of whether you like it or not. It's gonna be there, and that's just how it is. Belief is a choice.
No, yeah, like, I mean, if I was really left field, which some of these guys are, like, I would say, like, I believe velociraptors look like they did in Jurassic Park. That's what I want to believe. And I'm sure if I dug deep enough, I could find some random, strange blog written by Joe Nobody that fits my narrative. Then
I can literally imagine, like, old people named Joe watching this be like, why does it have to be Joe?
Yeah, right. Why does it gotta be Joe?
Why does it gotta be Joe?
Jim Nobody. John Nobody. All the J's.
All the J's, yeah.
But what ends up happening is, even if they cite random papers and they make it look really pretty, the moment that narrative, the moment my belief gets tested against actual scientific facts, it's going to fall apart because we have evidence, we have fossils to the contrary. And that's the thing, that's the key thing. It's like, there's not a magic formula for winning an argument with a kid. It's as simple as, like, show me how it works in the proof, give me the proof. And 99% of the time it just falls apart because they can't give you the proof. We even tell people, show us Tyrannosaurid skin that shows feathers, and they always defer to who?
Well, they defer to blog posts.
No, they defer to Tyrannus.
Oh, that, yeah, of course, yes. I didn't actually...
And,
that's surprising. I never... Like, I always keep bringing this up, and I didn't even, like, catch on to that yet.
It's okay. But yeah, they always defer to Tyrannus, meaning they're going off an old classification of Tyrannus, which I think Tyrannus was published back in, was it 2012, 2013?
12,
originally?
12.
2012. Mm-hmm. So Tyrannus was published in 2012. And it was just a floating Tyrannosauroid. I mean, that was kind of done so it could plug into, like, if we want any of these Tyrannosaurs to have feathers, Tyrannus was this, like, adapter that could just plug into any of those critters to have feathers. And then finally it was properly classified back in, I think, 2015, 2016.
Something like that,
yeah. As a Proceratosaurid. So it specifically had a class separate. It was a sister taxa of the direct lineage that led to Tyrannosaurids proper, or tyrants that we know them. So Tyrannus isn't even a Tyrannosaurid anymore. It's a Proceratosaurid. And anybody that uses the Tyrannus argument, you can already tell right off the bat they haven't read a paper in the past, like, 5, 6, 7 years, because had they read the papers, had they done the science properly, they would have come up to that fact, and they would have known, like, no, that evidence is nullified, because even by distant phylogenetic association, we have almost like 7 or 8 species of proper tyrannosaurids with scale impressions across the board, no feather impressions on any of them. We have 1 or 2 tyrannosauroids, specifically Proceratosaurids, with feather impressions. The phylogenetic methodology falls apart in the face of physical fossil evidence. That's what people don't get. That's why people keep using the phylogenetic argument, because
it has to be the other way around.
Yeah, it has to be. It is the other way around.
It is technically the other way around, yeah. But I think it is not, which is obviously wrong. It's wrong.
It's the only loophole they have. So they keep using it and abusing it. We've even had people say, like, even if they had a Tyrannosaur mummy, they would still say, like, well, it's got to have feathers somewhere. Or it's like you can't get a level of ignorance beyond that. It's like, we have the mummy. It's like saying Hadrosaurs have feathers after we have so many Hadrosaur mummies.
Do you know, I've been accused of being biased against feathers, to the point where somebody actually made a comment, and I actually think it's really funny, though. I mean, it's quite creative. I mean, especially given the context of what they were trying to do. It was not actually, I don't even think it's remotely offensive. I'm pretty sure that the person probably was intending it to be I don't know even if it was intended to be offensive to me or not, to be honest, because I think he was just trolling and actually meant to joke about it. And I kind of took it as a joke. he said that basically I shave my head, so therefore I hate filaments so much because that's why I shave my head. Yeah. So somehow this is reflecting my quote-unquote bias against filaments. So
by that logic, vultures hate feathers, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you must love them because look at you. You know, you got a bigger beard. You have hair.
It was so funny because I think we saw we had an not even an argument. It was kind of a moment of like ooh ah, because I'm sure people that watch the YouTube videos, whenever you get anybody that goes against something you believe, that you put a lot of personal investment into, and they are just giving you hard facts, they're giving you no wiggle room to really debunk their reasoning or validating your pet theory, or your whatever you believe. The next step is villainize. It's easy to villainize those people. Oh, yeah. So like it's always been blanket statements like you hate birds, I hate birds. That was a blanket statement for anybody I think that's been on the channel really.
I want people to also I want people to also understand that when we talk in a group chat, we frequently like come to the points where sometimes we disagree and sometimes we get into like some aspects that don't necessarily concern paleo, which I don't want to get into here for obvious reasons, but it's because it's irrelevant. But we disagree quite frequently, and when it comes to paleo matters too, we roast each other as well, just so people are aware that we do roast each other, while we're still kind of like talking, hey guys, like when this whole thing's over, shall we like try to save up, for tickets, maybe get together somewhere, do some like hang out and shit, whatever, just like because like we leave this at the table basically, it doesn't affect us personally.
Oh yeah, because I mean you're not monetized, right? Well, I don't know if I want to drop any swear word.
No, it's fine. No, this content is not for children. This content is not for children.
But I mean, it's because we're adults. It's as simple as that. We're grown men and women, and we can act like adults. And we can have disagreements, and we can shake hands, and we can go about our lives and get an ice cream or a root beer, guys. And we're adults. That's what adults do, which is kind of lost when you get into these heated arguments online. It just falls apart so fast. I had someone that I think told you during a reconstruction faux pas that I did last year with Velociraptor. Never mind all the bad reconstructions that were done this year of that bird / now lizard. Yep. And I haven't touched that at all. I was like, nope, I'm going to be the higher guy. Everybody did these reconstructions. They took the paper at face value, and we're going to learn moving forward. But going back to the other story, the thing that was funny was I got into a conversation recently with a lot of people that we've had the more trouble with online, and it was about birds. And I think what blew everybody's mind, like I could even see the gears seize in their heads that
so
actually love.
You put something in there like a freaking rod or something, and it's like just started.
Went in because it's like Josh hates birds, and then I told him about all these birds that we got to work on at the LA Zoo and the cassowary and how I love the cassowaries, and we have the Amazonian eagles, and we have the stellar sea eagles, and we have the California condors, and we have breeding programs for all these giant birds, the Andean condor, and it's just like it shell shocked them. Like their whole argument of like, well, this guy's a villain because he just hates birds. That's why nothing has feathers that he does. It just fell apart because I actually do reference birds a lot. Some of my favorite animals growing up were the terror birds. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you try to villainize someone you don't agree with, and it falls apart. You try to villainize the scientific methodology of the charts, it falls apart. You try to villainize the evidence, it falls apart. Like, it's one of those things where we're watertight. We set standards for arguments, and even people that have been learning how to debate scientifically have been using our methodologies to do it. And they found the arguments going a lot smoother because they're like, we get around all the gunk that usually comes with debating science online, and we get into the nitty-gritty of the papers. And once we do that and we get into the nitty-gritty of the fossils and the papers, a lot of the arguments become a lot more watertight. For anything, like arguing anything in paleontology, not just so much in
You know what's
Tegman.
really interesting? I'm not going to obviously mention the names here. I try to avoid mentioning names unless they are directly relevant, because I prefer to focus on the points and arguments instead of the names, because then when you start mentioning the names, it kind of starts, detracting, and distracting too much from the main point. So I'm just going to keep to the core. So basically, remember there was a guy who once on Instagram was, when you were still hanging out there, he was messaging you quite a lot, and you were debating in regards to certain aspects of reconstructions. And
one of dozens of kids, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he is. I know him. I mean, like, I know him as in like via distance. He is like, he's still at school, I believe. And do you know what's the funniest part is? He's actually one of the classic examples when he took on board the lessons that he learned, from your conversations that you guys had with him. And then he had some similar conversations with me, and then eventually he just kind of like, after a while, he just approached me again, basically. And he approached me from such a different angle that I actually forgot it was the same guy. I was actually like, have we spoken before? And he's like, yeah, that's how, oh, it's you, okay. Fuck's sake, man, I didn't even recognize you. You know what I mean? Like, that's how crazy it was. And I just think it's really encouraging and quite nice to see this, that there are people who are actually going back and they're reevaluating their positions. So it means that they're actually doing work on themselves in that sense. Not because they agree with us or not. They may have come to this different conclusion, but it's the fact that they go back and actually rethink their ideas, and they actually then are willing to approach you and be like, hey, that time we had this conversation, I just realized that when you pointed to that thing, it's actually quite consistent. You were right about that. Like, I was thinking this, but then I went and examined it, and it turned out that this is what it was, which is what we've been saying. And
yeah, and another thing too is I'm careful not to personify it, because it's one thing to kind of say they're agreeing with us, and that's the thing, because that makes it a personification. That means,
which is
like,
not actually who it is. Yeah, it's not us who say that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm imperfect. If you dig deep enough, you'll find a lot of imperfections.
Dude, I'm an asshole on the internet, and I got a reputation to maintain. I ain't no Mr. Perfect either, in case somebody was looking. Sorry, ladies, I ain't the Mr. Perfect, so move along.
But the thing away from it, no, it's okay. The thing that's away from it, there's I always make it a separation, because someone was starting to ask me, it might have been the same person, I don't know, what I thought dictated a paper, and I told them it doesn't matter what I think, and I told them this is how a paper is constructed. And the same person, it might be the same kid, I showed him what goes into peer review and what goes into creating a paper, and how those papers are founded on other papers, and how those papers go under their own peer review and are founded on other papers. So it's almost a pyramid effect, where you get this one paper that you disagree with, but the foundation is a whole library of research that was done over decades. And that's the thing that we talked about. Like, I think it was like surface rugosity on maxillary elements for Tyrannosaurs, and this person would start hitting me up with like, well, what about this alternate skin structure for this because of the rugosity? And I told him that paper is referenced in the paper that you're trying to read. You got to look at the citations. There's a little number right there that if you click on that number, sometimes on the PDF, it'll shoot you down to the paper reference to address that theory that you're struggling with. And that blew that person's mind. It kind of opened their mind in terms of like, it's not what I'm saying. This is just how the science is made. And this is how the science is. It has nothing to do with personification. This isn't like Josh's 10 rules to make a reconstruction or some nonsense.
Or mine, as I've kind of been frequently accused. Like, I didn't make this up. I'm just sharing it. I didn't make this up.
No, exactly. It's more like, no, these are the rules for reconstruction set down by the science. This is the science you're struggling with. This has nothing to do with me. This is the science itself that you're struggling to come to terms with, because at this moment in time, the science just is going opposite of what you've chosen to believe and accept over so many years, and that's the nature of paleontology. Some things we accepted as commonplace a decade ago aren't true today.
No.
And go back 2 decades, go back 100 years, it's all changing. That's the nature of paleontology. That's the curse of paleo art. That's why it's always going to be a field we need, because we always have new theories and reconstructions we have to do. So that's what I tell people. That's why I tell people to make that distinction. It's like, you're not listening to me. I have a signature on the charts. Let me try to bring up the charts real fast. I'm bouncing in between internet, my work at home jazz, and
I decided to actually switch to the Stegosaur chart just to kind of have a different tone of yellow for a change from the red and bright turquoise. So
yeah, but let me see here.
In fact, it's actually quite good resolution, so you can read some of this stuff as well.
Very nice. Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the contributions and review, I mean, shy of my copyright, which that's just so people don't take credit for the chart that I do, because we've since talked about my art getting stolen online. That'll be a different video.
yeah, exactly.
But shy of that, I'm not personifying these charts. The people that are in the contribution and review are the scientists. Those are the people you're arguing with. Like, those are the people you're disagreeing with. Not me.
or you can just say, frankly, if you were to build the full chain, basically, you're disagreeing. When they disagree with what I say, for example, that means they disagree with the evidence that I cite, and if we talk about the people, like these people who have contributed to review the charts, they are the ones who basically, all they did basically is verify that the information that you have cited and the references that you've used, in the brackets for the citations that you've used, that they are correct. That's pretty much what it is for. They verify that this is correct source of information that identifies it. Generally speaking, you're basically arguing with the evidence, because my main point always is to remember that it's not about who says it, it's about what is being said and what evidence is being used, methodology. Remember how Jeffrey keeps hammering this all the time. He wouldn't stop talking about it all the time. It's like, I want to see how you came to the conclusion. It's one thing, what the conclusion is important, but I don't want you to... I mean, it's one thing when you say, okay, A to Z, and you don't see what's in between. And we want to see what happened in between. That's what we want to do. And that is why we have the evidence, the papers, and we have scientists who can help us to understand and navigate through it, because a lot of times I message Jason, who is actually credited here, and you can see I've done 2-part video interview with him as well, although we didn't record the video properly. It was just, stuff on the screen going on, but... when he comes back next time, maybe we do a full-on proper record. But the point I'm making is that I frequently ask him, hey Jay, can you explain what this means? Because this is like a bunch of words I don't understand. Can you translate it to English, please? Basically, that's what I ask him. And he explains it in one sentence, and I realize that it's actually really just this thing that is quite simple once you understand it, but because it's very strong scientific terminology, you have to ask people like scientists like Jason, Kenneth Carpenter in case of Stegosaurus, which I've got right in front here, there, Kenneth Carpenter, and they help us to understand these things better, to put it into context. Let's just say this. That's probably the best way to say it, right? Just put it into context. So, do you want to talk about the Stegosaur chart as well a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's been any. Ironically, the only thing that gets argued the most is the T-Rex chart, just because we don't have feathers on it. Every other chart seems to be fine.
Yeah, everything else seems fine and quiet. It's almost like these guys are being left out of the discussion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fascinating because my charts are slowly starting to become more popular with larger. More experienced paleo artists like William Stout, for example. I just worked with him last year at the Dino Fest at the Natural History Museum here in LA. And he was just all over the charts. Like, he was like, I've heard about this skin impression. I've heard about this skin impression. And this, ironically, was the purpose for the charts, was to help paleo artists get their reconstructions more fine-tuned. And William Stout like I've had conversations with him. I'm even sending him the larger scale charts because he asked me about a skin impression for a Tyrannosaurid, Albertosaurus specifically, and we had it on the chart and we showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's the skin impression." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll send you all this stuff." And then that chart is also in Jeffrey Bond's museum up in Ogden, Utah.
Yep.
And the Stegosaurus chart actually was being circulated as well because it's the only Stegosaurus skin chart that exists. And it was originally shared by, let me see if I could find his name real fast, Francisco Costa,
Right.
who's in down south in South America. And he just described a new Stegosaurid. And we were supposed to get the paper from him to include in the chart. Sadly, it never came about when we were pushing to get publicated.
Yeah,
That's
a
the
shame.
beauty. Well, I mean, that's the beauty about those charts, though. They get updated all the time. So I might hit up Francisco to get that update for the Stegosaurus chart, now that chart's kind of more in one piece. But I forget the museum that it's associated with. Here we go. It's the LNEG. And it's in Portuguese. So I'm going to botch this.
Yeah,
Forgive
go
me.
ahead. Go ahead. Just do it. Do it.
So it's the Laboratorio Nacional de Energia y Geologia
Bravo.
in Amadora, Portugal. So that's
Bravo.
that preference. That's LNEG.
Your Portuguese is better than mine.
I'm sure the Portuguese are screaming at me for botching their language.
They might, yeah. Although I find that they are usually very forgiving most of the time, especially when I've had a Spanish guy on my channel, and when we spoke off record.
I remember that. Yeah. It was
the guy who does the skeletals, remember? Really good ones as well, by the way, really good work. So check him out as well in the videos. You know, it's the one.
Yeah.
Remember when you were joking that we've done this black and white thumbnail? So yeah, we need to do it for you as well.
I know. I'm missing my GQ. I gotta send.
The GQ reference. Yeah, the GQ reference.
I'll
So
send
we
you
need
a
to do
good
that.
one.
Yeah,
Me
send me a good one for that. Yeah.
Pensively looking at a skull or something, leaning against the wall.
Yeah, just be like, hey, man of the year, 2020.
I'm holding up this wall with my sultriness. Okay. Oh no, my raptor fell. That was all my sultriness.
By the way, if you don't mind, since I don't want to obviously get too distracted, but can you show us the raptor bust close up a little bit?
Here's a completely 100% accurate Velociraptor.
May I just say, movie accurate, because people are just gonna start screaming at the screen. I specifically took pause so that we have some people just going.
I'm picking the scab. That's accurate.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Precious. Right.
Yeah,
It's a nice bust. Did you do this one yourself?
No, this was done from someone called Alien Effects out of San Diego. Highly recommend. He's very affordable. These are all casts from Stan Winston Studios. That is not an endorsement.
Right.
He's a good friend.
Right.
But if you so happen over there...
Did you paint it as well, or not?
No, it's his paint job. I do want to
his
revisit
paint
it,
job.
though. It's his paint job, but I do want to revisit it.
Nice.
But I got a full scale T-Rex I also got to paint, so I got to pick and choose my battles right now.
Yep.
But going back to the Stegosaur chart.
Yeah, let's bring it up again. No worries. Here it is.
So the species that they described at the LNEG was it's called Miragaya. Miragaya is I believe a new species of Kentrosaurus, and we do have Kentrosaur a part of the skin chart.
Miragaya is a different taxon. It's actually because basically here is how it looks. So Miragaya is the most well representative of Stegosaurid branch, which is called Decentrurinae.
Yeah.
I almost broke my tongue trying to say that. So basically, that's one of the reasons why it's very important, because the Kentrosaurus, I think it's Stegosaurinae, I believe, unless it's free roaming Stegosaurid, but I think it's Stegosaurinae.
Yeah. You probably know more about that because I'm not up to speed on my Stegosaurids.
I was doing something completely unrelated to this video. Basically, we're just digging up through their family trees, and somehow it just kind of, brought
you
back
were
up. You
you
know
were
what I mean?
doing
Like,
you were doing sculptures, right? Because I know you do a lot of sculptures, and I know you were studying a lot of stegosaurs at
oh
one
yeah,
point.
I was definitely doing some
Yeah.
of that stuff as well. Yeah, and I'm still doing it. It's just that it takes forever to finish one thing, to be honest. But we'll get to
Hey,
that eventually.
Arson, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
How great is it to have those sweet, sweet skin impressions on that chart?
Oh, it's like you know when you make an order, you're sitting there like thinking imaginary things that you would like to happen. You know, like you just make a
Yeah.
list of things that would like cool things that you would want to happen, and this is definitely one of those things. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here we go, brilliant, thank you, thank you. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, so I mean, it's good to have this. I mean, like I said,
In all seriousness,
These are
it's
the-
very useful though.
yeah, no, that these are the purpose of the skin charts to make paleo reconstructions easier for paleo artists, true aspiring paleo artists. That's the purpose of these charts. They're the biggest question we've had for paleo art is what do dinosaurs look like, and we're already seeing how many people don't even know how much skin's been preserved. I think you were interviewing Broussard at one point, and you brought up the fact that we had a skin impression for an Allosaurid, and it blew his mind. Like you could even hear it in the interview. Like he just kind of looked like he fell quiet. Like what? So we have instances where not even people in the field are even aware how much skin is out there for dinosaurs.
That's
And
true.
then we had-
I wanted to quickly, sorry to interrupt, I don't mean to do this, but just to quickly brush up that there is no separate independent, for viewers who don't know, there is no separate video of me interviewing Dr. Steve yet. It was a part of the collaboration where I was invited to participate in a mass sort of, project where there were a lot of other people, and I just had my turn to basically do it. And yes, he was, and I can say 100% Josh was right. He was very actually blown away by the idea that there at least may be a skin. Whether it's true or not is still to be seen, but it seems to be more or less likely to be true until it gets published. We won't know. But the point is that the very likelihood of this being possibility already kind of made him very excited, and he was just like, all of a sudden he just lit up even more, you know what I mean? Like that's what it was like. It was quite cool. So sorry, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No, it's okay. But no, I mean, like not only that, like I mean, we know the skin comes from an allosaur. We had a poster published at one of the geological assemblies that happened, one of the conventions. Not SVP, but another one.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Crap ton of them.
But on top of that, then we had the we had a Allosaurus. What was the new one that got Jimenensi or?
Hold on, I'll say it. I can do it. I think it's Jimanseni.
Jimenseni?
I think that's how. Well, I'm trying to pronounce it in proper Latin. I don't know whether it's the same in English, kind of spoken like U.S. English or British English, but I try to pronounce them more like the true Latin form. So I would say I think it's Jimanseni.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably is Jimenseni. Yeah, like just with that paper, they revealed that with Big Al, there was skin impressions for Big Al.
Yep.
And it just was never published. So with the publication of Allosaurus jimenseni, Big Al finally got those skin impressions published. Surprise, surprise, because it seems like a curse with theropod skin that isn't a feather. That those skin impressions went missing. But we at least have the we at least have the illustrations of how the skeleton was found in situ. That the impressions were there. What kind of skin it had. It was very large, round, pebbly scale structures, which also match the juvenile Allosaurus skin impressions that we got from that poster that was done by, I forgot which paleontologist did it, but I think it was for one of the geological meets that they did here.
The only
I don't
name
know.
I can recall, I think Jeffrey mentioned, I think it was somebody by the name Jimmy, but I can't remember Jimmy who.
Yeah. So it's, but I mean, all that to kind of illustrate, like, there's stuff out there that's yet to be even properly described. It's just been sitting on a shelf, but it's key stuff that we need for the proper reconstruction of these animals for the skin charts. And that's roughly the end all be all purpose of the skin charts that we've been doing. That I think I've said, and I don't have enough of it completed that we could do a preview.
Yeah, we need a bit more.
Yeah, because life just happened to catch up. Like I caught a flesh-eating bacteria, and then I had a few deaths in the family, and now we have an outbreak. I just have not had time to,
I'm.
to do a number of
I don't
things.
remember if I don't know if I actually messaged you during those times, but just to let you know, I was perfectly aware of all this stuff, so I was kind of like, you know what, maybe wait till you get to take care of it properly and just not get in the way. I'm the kind of guy who like I just prefer not to get in the way, and then when it's all resolved, then I ask you how it went. I'm that kind of guy.
No, yeah, I mean, you reached out 1 or 2 times because it got tough, man. Like there was a point where I just had to walk away from social media completely just to kind of recollect my strength. But we do have an ornithomimid chart that's in the works. That feather ornithomimid that was found in Alberta, I believe it's Alberta up north. We might have to get Curie back on that chart.
If it was Dinosaur Park formation, then it would have been Alberta.
I want to say it was the Horseshoe Formation because it was in the same formation that they found the Albertosaurus skin. So that was specifically why.
This is very interesting. You know why? Because here's the thing. Was it together with the Albertosaurus or was it together with the Gorgosaurus skin? Because I believe there was Gorgosaurus skin out there as well in the Belleville. Or maybe they called it, or maybe it was a Gorgosaurus that was called Albertosaurus libratus or something like that. Because there's always like this craziness going on with it.
Yeah, the crossing between the Gorgosaur and Albertosaur taxons is
it's insane. Yeah.
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's definitely a tale for another time, but everybody knows what's going on anyway. So we're all everybody here is up to date with this crazy ongoing stuff that's related to these 2 taxa. And but regardless of the fact, though, either one of these we do have that both of them have been preserved in the same or similar condition, regardless. Because they come from the same locality. The most that we might see that they might happen to be from slightly different time, if it was one of them that was from the Horseshoe Canyon and the other one from the Dinosaur Park, because Dinosaur Park basically predates Horseshoe Canyon by quite a bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Curie would know most. It would be good to get a geologist on it because I know like they just have certain sedimentation that's there in the park. But there's not so much of a gap between the 2 species any more than there would be anything that's found in China. Because a lot of the stuff that's found in China that does show feather impressions, those are very varying geological times that you get.
The only gaps that might potentially matter is when you are going to talk about arguments for separating or uniting the taxa, species, etc. Because Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus are actually quite a bit of a gap apart between themselves, which is the argument that Dr. Curie actually uses generally to keep them as separate taxa, at least for the time being.
Yeah,
but that's as far as I know.
I'm Team Gorgosaurus. I love Gorgosaurus. I love the old I think it was 1950s, 1960s movies. Gorgo. He wrecked London.
I am Team Gorgosaurus just so I can sometimes troll Dr. Tom just occasionally when I drop him a friendly message, be like, "Hello, Dr. Carr, how you doing? Oh, by the way, remember that time when you mentioned there was a Gorgosaurus cough? Oh, I mean Albertosaurus libratus, and just
we need to have fun,
he's quite good about it as well. He likes, he's actually surprisingly for somebody who sometimes, some people say that scientists don't have humor. That's such a rubbish thing to say. Scientists do have humor, trust me. They're quite.
Yeah. I mean, I'll plug an old friend of mine, Andy Hien, and Andy works with Tom a lot, and I'm friends with Andy, and he tells me all these fun stories with Tom. They're cool people to hang out with. They're people just like you and me. We all just hang out and just and relax.
Yeah.
But so that.
Yep.
Space, which is the ornithomimid chart.
Pause for a second.
Oh, did we get it?
Yeah, we got a bit of a lag for a moment. Hold on, no wait, I need to bring my face up. Hold on. I flinched. No, didn't work. I flinched. Right, no, I think it's gone now. So carry on.
So that's the most recent chart is the ornithomimid chart. It's one of the first feathered theropods that we're going to be including in the chart system.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wanted to do more, and then paleo art or dino art reconstructions kind of went nuts. So we got to kind of swing back and address animals I didn't think we were going to have to address just because the question of their skin integments being questioned. So we're debating right now doing either a sauropod chart or a ceratopsian chart after the ornithomimid chart is wrapped. Depending on how much skin is available, I think both of those species are neck to neck with the amount of skin that's been published. So I'll have to look into the papers a little bit more. I want to say sauropods just have more skin published on physical paper, versus a lot of the ceratopsians have skin that's on display at museums, but there's no real papers that have been written up on that stuff yet. So Lane the trike, for example, at Houston, it's on display. It's in a museum, thankfully. Thank God that got in a museum. But it's there's no papers.
I don't think the reason why I think it's also because a lot of times these things, they get kind of plugged in when they are accompanying specific subjects of research, because they're not always the central issue, of the description. They just happen to tag along, so to speak. Because like that Allosaurus jumanceni publication, it was just all about describing the species, so it was appropriate to plug it in, just like the Spinosaurus horneri, or in the Latin pronunciation it should be horneri, but we will call it horneri for the English speaking. And when it was described, the facial integument was also plugged in there because it was part of the description of the species too.
Yep.
And it kind of conveniently actually was there, and was just only more reason to kind of put it all together. So a lot of these times you will find that, unfortunately we don't have these things included, but there is good news, as you would have known probably, since it has been brought up in a group chat, that we will have hopefully sooner, because it's already pretty much agreed that it's gonna go to a museum. The frill skin, scaly skin on a frill of Triceratops on the shield.
Oh, thank God! Yeah,
So,
no, I actually didn't know about that, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, Michael, Mike, the guy from Canada, not Michael from Sweden, but Michael from Canada.
Oh yeah,
he's
good
got
artist,
more
by the
info.
way. Plug his Instagram.
Yeah, me and him were we keep in touch all the time because we both do mutually consistent scale-wise, sculptures of dinosaurs. So we kind of always chat about, tips and hints and stuff like that. So basically, we sometimes we troll each other on that sort as well, because we both have things when it comes to sculpting that we overdo or don't do enough, and we kind of poke each other a little bit. Which is another sentiment, guys. Good roasting can be helpful too, you can learn a lot from a good roast.
Right. I don't know. That's a whole other conversation.
But the thing is, it's all about the whole point is that we do it when we're friendly about it, because there's so many times I had to go back on my Allosaurus, for example, when I was sculpting it. And he was pointing out things that I was not able to see because he was getting a better perspective as a different person, And he would be like, nah, take this bit off. And then I take it off and be like, no, that was too much, add more on, And it just kept going back and forth like that to the point where I was like, Mike, I'm gonna kill you. So,
it's the artist's curse to kind of always have a piece of art that never gets finished. I have art that I finished for years, and then I'll see it with new eyes, and I'm like, why did I ever stop working on that?
Yeah, I get
and then I'll
get
it, and I'll start working on it again.
Yeah, I have so many models as well from like a variety of different ranges that I've collected, and they are still unpainted models that I've had for years, and I just can't get myself to paint them.
Nuts. But yeah, no, it's good to hear that the frill skin is going to a museum for publication. It's not always the case. Like, I think we talked to you, and you were lucky enough to be in England with the airport when we all heard about Dippy the sauropod. I think it was a diplodocid that was on display at an airport with all that.
I'll tell you what it was. Although I don't remember, if I haven't made the video yet, I will have to make a video about it, because I remember that I wanted to make a video about it. But
yeah, you did take video, and you took a lot of great pictures.
Yeah, I took pictures. I took even a video recording of it, but I don't remember if I've ever actually put it together in a project. So if I haven't yet, then I will do it. But the whole point was it was a diplodocid.
Well, the thing is, like, the whole point was it was a specimen with an exceptional skin preservation,
and there was quite a significant amount of it in different areas as well.
Yeah, And instead of going to a museum, because the airport was doing reconstruction, so we were taking it out. I think it went to auction, and I don't know what happened to Dippy
Yeah.
since then.
This is not a DP, it's a different specimen, because DP is the nickname of the specimen, which is currently, I think, being toured around, which was the big adult Diplodocus in London's Museum of Natural History. This specimen is a Diplodocid of unassigned taxon of some sort, so we only know that it's a Diplodocid. And
did it have a name? Did they nickname it, or?
I can't remember what it was. It was something. Definitely it was something, but I can't remember what it was. And it was a smaller size specimen as well. It was not big, actually, for a sauropod. And it just had a lot of different skin impressions on it. And literally all the bones themselves.
Yeah, and that's the sad part, though. That's the takeaway of this whole conversation, is we have one case where skin made it into a museum. We can do charts on it. We have another case where the skin was lost, not going to a museum, went to an auction. As far as we know, the private collector that's going to get this specimen is going to look at the skin as just chunks of rock, discard it or store it, and just focus on the skeleton. Because a lot of these private collectors just do it for decoration, and we've seen a lot of the decorations they've done with a lot of the skeletons. They're literally living room and dining room pieces,
or just so they can take selfies with them and tell the world that oh yeah, tick the box, I've got it, and I purchased it for the N whatever amount of money because I can.
Yeah, it's a power purchase. It's one of those
pretty much
things. So it's one of those cases where it's like you have two different scenarios. One ended great. The other one ended very heartbreaking. Just with that one Diplodocus, the airport dinosaur, I'll call it. It's like that alone, that one specimen alone would have justified its own chart. And I don't know if we got enough photos where I can do an unofficial chart. So at least
you can. You've got photos there, and you will also find if you want. When I dig it up, hopefully I still have it. I should have it, as far as I know. Because
I think I copied everything you shared with us. I know I have that.
Yeah. I definitely shared it as well. So I made sure that I'm pretty sure when I shared it, I also said, guys, save it somewhere just in case, because you never know what happens to your hard drive. It could go bananas, and then you just lose everything. Yeah, and there is no insurance from things going to shit, guys.
No, there is.
There is.
Yeah. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's Murphy's Law.
So, do you want to move to the next one, the Ballze chart of Carnotaurus?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if there's as much to talk about that one, because that one's just, it's funny. It's probably the most skin preserved for a theropod dinosaur of this size, but it's also the least amount that's been published. I think there's only 2 papers that we cite in this chart. Yes.
Bonaparte et al. 1990, and there is Samson 2007 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Those are the only 2 papers. This was a fairly fast going chart. Oh, I think I gotta send you the updated chart. Because I'm looking at this one. This one looks to be the prototype chart, the one that you mailed me. So the finished one has also the in memory of Steven Zirkus, because Zirkus is the one that did. Not too many people know, because people see that sculpture of Carnotaurus from the 80s or the 90s, and they think it's a dated sculpture. They don't know that sculpture at the time, even to this time, is the most scientifically accurate sculpture of Carnotaurus. Like, it stands up today.
Yeah.
Because Zirkus was a part of the paper with Bonaparte, and that's why we have the dedication to him, because that sculpture that we have in that dedication, that's the most scientific accurate reconstruction of the animal, not accounting for Samson 2007, because then that was the study they did on the rugosity of what was the dinosaur?
Majungasaurus, probably.
So the rugosity on Majunga correlated with the skin that was found on the face of Carnotaurus before it got destroyed, and it very much correlates to what was described in a Dysplatosaurus horneri, which is very form-fitting keratinized skin that was against the muzzle and the rostrum. So it's one of those things where it's like, we have not only consistencies within species for Tyrannosaurus, but consistencies within theropods, showing very specific trends for facial integument and body integument that, it's kind of more outlandish to claim the opposite of the trend unless you were given fossils that give you very, very drastic or opposing views in contrast. So in this case, for the skin integument of Carnotaurus, the opposing view would be Eutyrannus. And the only reason why that holds up is because we have the fossils of Eutyrannus and we have the fossils of Carnotaurus. So those are two very extremes, which you wouldn't be able to hold those up to each other unless you had the fossil evidence. So if you did Eutyrannus by phylogenetic bracketing, it wouldn't hold up against the fossil evidence for Carnotaurus. But if you have the fossil evidence for Eutyrannus, which you do, it holds up against trying to phylogenetically bracket scales on Eutyrannus, even though we have skin preservation of this size for a theropod of the same scale. So that's what I talk about when I say fossil evidence versus phylogenetic bracketing and other methodologies to try to fill in the gaps. That's a good example of how that is appropriately applied.
Yeah, Jeffrey has done a very good job multiple times describing, generally when we were getting into any kind of discussions online with people, Jeffrey has particularly gone through insane lengths of time to actually explain and break down why it's important to understand how phylogenetic bracketing is used and what it's designed for. Because once you understand the purpose of why you do it and how it's used, you will realize that that in itself does not serve the evidence. It's used to arrange the available taxa for the purpose of just understanding a bit more of how the taxa is related and what can be implied where there is no fossil evidence. But when you do it, you use, as people in science community say, the most parsimonious argument in that case. The most parsimonious argument means that it's the most likely and the simplest answer to the question. And when you look at all the closest associations to certain things, like when you talk about T-Rex included and other Tyrannosauridae, the most parsimonious argument is basically that they have scales, because there simply is no evidence to support any presence of filaments. And I like to frequently point out on this channel, for people who have this addiction to always say, but didn't somebody of the scientists say that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence? I say no, that's actually not a good argument. I don't find it a good argument, because the burden of proof, generally speaking, when it comes to the ethics of scientific discussion, the burden of proof always lies on a positive claim. You cannot just say, aliens exist, prove me wrong. Like, you cannot do that. You cannot prove the negative. That's one of the reasons why we don't operate in any, like, judiciary as well doesn't operate like this. Nobody operates in the science like this, because there is no way to actually prove negatives unless there is an absolute direct way. Like, for example, I will not go through that wall if I'm gonna ram into it. So I can prove it directly if I do it right now, but I will knock myself out, obviously, and end up in a hospital. But the point being made is that you always try to prove the positive argument, and once you have the proof or evidence, sometimes it's just evidence that implies some, but in many cases evidence can also be a proof too. So they're not mutually exclusive things, they mostly are mutually inclusive things. So what happens is that when you have evidence for something that is positively, like Tyrannosaurids were scaly and you have evidence to support it, then for those who say that they were not, or that they were something other than just that, then they have to produce evidence to support that claim. So they cannot just say that, oh, we don't have the evidence of this area of the body, so therefore they could be something else. You can believe they could be, but you cannot make a claim they were. That's what I'm trying to say. So, thank you very much for listening for my long rant. So, there is that part. And you gotta be always kind of honest with yourself here and just accept facts. You cannot, misrepresent it and just pretend. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, forget me, forget yourself, guys. This is addressing the audience here. If you're gonna be making a claim out of that, and based on the premises that I just described, which is obviously not the right way to do it, as in, you know, when you try to go backwards on it, you're lying to yourself, okay? You're only lying to yourself. And you're not doing yourself service. Forget me, forget anyone else, because I will walk away from the argument and I know already what the fact is and I'm okay with it. But if you're still not gonna be okay with it, you're only lying to yourself. So, I'm just saying.
Just saying, man.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I'd say for the most part, that's a good. I think that's a good area to wrap. I don't know if there's been anything else that's been addressed with the charts.
The skin charts, I think unless you have something else to comment on, I don't think there is really much more. Other than obviously what we can expect, hopefully in the nearest future, whenever you get around to it. So. Yeah,
no, I've been stockpiling a lot of skin impressions. I might even do more subcategorized. They're going to be more open to scrutiny because they're not going to go through the same review process. But I might do something that's called like skin bites, so little mini charts just kind of noting skin impressions that we've found and try to cite the papers that are included in. Maybe I'll do one for the Allosaurid skin stuff, and that's going to be more open to interpretation, but not at the same time. It's not, because it's like the skin and it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, for the most part, the skin charts that we have lined up is we're trying to finish up the ornithomimid chart, and then it'll be sauropod or ceratopsian next. But those two will definitely get done. And then after that, we might swing back toward another feathered theropod. Maybe Jeffrey's been wanting to do more dromaeosaurids.
Yep.
So I might do something for, I think it's a Zhenwanlong and some of these other dromies that we know from China that have exceptional integument.
There are some, I think there are some of the smaller ones. Zhenwanlong, I think, is actually not a dromaeosaurid, and I don't think it has an integument preserved. Zhenwanlong is a free-roaming tyrannosauroid taxon, which
is it?
Yeah. I don't remember. There was something else.
There's something that started with a Z. We'll ask Jeffrey.
This is basically like if you talk about something that starts with an X or a Z and ends with long, that's pretty much half of the taxa library of Chinese origin. Pretty much.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of sort through a majority of it, but I'm sure it's tough for them to sort through a majority of our Latin-based named dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's always it works both ways the same way. Whatever we're thinking right now, they're thinking exactly the same about this side as well. You can bet on it.
I'm not faulting them for that. No.
Oh, no.
But yeah, no, it's we definitely have some good preservation for dromies. As far as the skin bites, I mean, we have the osteological evidence for Ceratosaurus. We have other fun skin bits for other dinosaurs that we can explore. So, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like we just got to explore it.
Don't forget the Nodosaurids as well, the Borealopelta, which is almost like the front torso, of the armor, articulated as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad because, I'm trying to have faith in human common knowledge that those dinosaurs have scaly integument. I'm sure some moron's going to see, like, they found this one in Antarctica, and they're just going to throw fur on the thing just for giggles. So, as much as I want to have some faith in human beings, I don't anymore.
Me neither.
So again, it's
except for my audience.
Yeah. So
in this case, given the context, I would say definitely. Except for my audience, I'd probably say I don't.
So, but yeah, I mean, at some point, I think all the dinosaurs will probably have a chart. The only one that I haven't touched is Hadrosaurs, because so much has been written on Hadrosaurs already.
A lot, yeah.
It's almost at a point where it's like it doesn't really benefit unless there's a Hadrosaur that has some really funky new stuff going on for it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see the justification versus a lot of the more obscure dinosaurs that we keep being seen misinterpreted in the paleo art. Those are the ones that need more immediate attention to kind of course correct the facts versus what's fiction or what's being adapted as a fact. even though it goes against what the evidence is showing.
Oh, 100%. I think it's one of those things like Hadrosaurids. If you look at some of the subfamilies, like if you look at the Saurolophinae and Lambeosaurinae, even within the taxa that's preserved skin, sometimes they show some differences, and it's gonna be pretty painful to try to unite it in a single chart because it's completely different, and because of the large areas that are preserved, you're gonna like have to split them apart because they're gonna overlap too much. There's just gonna be too much craziness going on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like we did it with the Tyrannosaurids, we might have to do it through via family, so more sub-families versus kind of just, if we did all of Tyrannosauroideae, for example, that's obviously way too complicated to try to put it all in one chart, and it wouldn't reflect the information correctly, even though we see people doing it to this day. Same thing with Hadrosaurs. It wouldn't be the ideal to kind of lump all the Hadrosaurs into one chart because they do have characteristics that are just very, very much species to species. So yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, we have some goals in the future, and they're going to be, hopefully I can get to them more so now that I'm working at home and we have all this free time to ourselves.
And we can produce more videos as well.
And we can produce more stuff, more content.
Yep.
Yeah,
somebody who made a wish, to bring you back on the channel, like they have no idea how much of a
they're gonna get up to their ears in content now.
There's gonna be a lot of stuff, but yeah, I mean, I think with the ornithomimids and dromies, and basically to make it a trio, you could say ceratopsids. Those are probably gonna be your go-to things, probably, because. Ceratopsids being that they don't really get published properly, but you have access to the museum collections, and maybe people who are curating over them, and dromies and ornithomimids, just because we want to also show that there is more stuff out there than just what we have already done, I guess. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good to have variety. But I haven't done too many. Like right now, the carnivores are outnumbering the herbivores. With the ornithomimid chart, that's like 3 carnivores to 1 herbivore. So I do want to do a bigger herbivore, more recognizable species, which you do ceratopsians or sauropods. Like we said, hadrosaurs have a lot published on them, so they're not really in any misrepresentation going on with hadrosaurs.
Yeah, there's no danger there.
Though I'm sure someone will draw them blowing fire.
Yeah, that's why we stay away from DeviantArt for as much as we can.
That down the road. No, it'll be a valid science blog, I'm sure. We'll be like, did you know it can blow fire? And we'll be sitting there smashing our heads on our desk.
My God. Or the bits, I mean, somebody approached me here. I'm not sure. I don't want to kind of go completely crazy on it because I don't mean to be like an absolute dickhead to the guy or anything like that. But I am gonna be a little bit of a. I'm joking.
Well, man.
No, I mean, like, what I mean is, how sometimes there was somebody suggested whiskers on theropods.
Oh Jesus!
So now it's like that just made me almost facepalm myself to death. And then when I come out, my sister asked me, why do you have so many bruises on your face? And I'll be like, yeah, I was just hitting myself too hard. And she's like, why? It's like, because somebody just said something so dumb I couldn't just believe it. So
yeah. It's probably a tweet, right? And someone tweet that?
No, I don't. Do you know what? I don't go on Twitter. I actually deleted my account permanently.
Good for you.
Yeah, I did it. But no, it wasn't on Twitter. It was just somewhere, I don't know, it's like somewhere on my video, maybe comments. Somebody just said, hey, do you think that whiskers may be a thing? And I'm like, hey, what? He's like, whiskers. And I'm like, fucking what? I just could not believe what I was hearing, and it may have been a genuine question, but it shocked me to the core, to the point that I was trying to compose myself, be like, I don't think so.
Well, hey, we have people out there now that can't tell the difference between a bird skull and a lizard skull, so it's fair game.
I want to do like a last cherry on... Can I just do a last cherry on top? Remember that thing with the penguin? That was discovered, and how it was being like, oh, by the way, those scales. And then all of a sudden, people just don't mention the fact that there is a very good the quality of preservation is the same as those scale impressions of Tyrannosaurus, by the way, based on high-res pictures. If you can find both and compare, you will see they're both very good quality.
Be careful because, again, because you got to be so specific. When we say quality, we don't mean it's the same skin impressions.
Yeah.
Or a penguin or a tiger. When we say quality, we mean it's the same quality of preservation.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that the penguin skin is the same structures seen on any theropod that is showing scale structures for skin.
There is one more detail which is left out frequently and conveniently, is that the penguin preservations actually show the points and anchors where the quills were attached.
Yeah.
So there you go. There are clear traces of follicles, and you can see them. It's very consistent pattern. So, and they're specifically addressed in the paper, which I have shared in my Discord. So people have already seen it. So they know.
Yeah,
that.
It's something that's sad, and I'll end it on this note. It's something that's sad that you have a very exceptionally preserved fossil, like that flipper that was preserved was phenomenal.
Oh, amazing! Yeah.
You see something you don't see every day, which is like you can see the developmental stages of the skin. If it's the same as we do have for contemporary penguins alive today, we have the quill knobs coming out of the bottom, even though a lot of people were claiming there's no feather impressions in it, so it means it's a scaly, right? And it's like, obviously you didn't see the goddamn paper because they're right goddamn there on the bottom of the fossil. But that's the thing that's sad, because this exceptional fossil is overshadowed by these very idiotic statements. And that's the thing that we, instead of talking about the fossil as it should be, which is just science and the penguin and the species and what events led to this preservation, we are now forced to address the idiotic comments and the even more just the more stranger arguments that are being thrown out there. But I do think that what was the name of the bird / lizard? Oculodentis?
Oh yeah, that's the very new one. Yeah, I haven't actually even talked about it on the channel yet. So, yeah.
But it's ironic because I think that took a lot of wind out of the sails of a lot of these guys, because a lot of these people co-authored that paper, man, and now we're just sitting there like, did you just want it to be a bird? Because
this was such
people. You had people saying
this
it was
a disaster. This was such a disaster and so embarrassing. Like, I could not believe when they finally, like, I was just like reading this like, oh my, like,
yeah,
this is
no, we were all
up.
just sitting there like, stuff is going on, guys.
Quickly drinks,
that's a lot,
popcorn.
That's a lot of egg. Yeah, that's a lot of egg on the face, but. It happens. The misinterpretations happen a lot in science.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
There was, I think, Jason shared that the scientific institution that was behind a lot of that paper, they wrote a retraction informally, and then that retraction is now being formalized into an actual paper. So the avian features for that lizard is now being sunk officially, so it is a lizard. It's a very weird one. That's not to take away, it's a weird thing, but it is officially, like, it's not any kind of avian or even theropod.
Being weird doesn't stop it from being lizards.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, man, where it's like I'd love to just focus on talking about the science. Sadly, we're put in positions constantly where we have to talk about the it's almost idiot proofing. Like, we got to idiot proof the science to a point where it's almost detrimental.
I hate to say this as well, because when we say idiot proof, we don't actually mean that it's about the people themselves. We mean the arguments themselves as well. Because remember, guys, I know there's going to be some yahoos probably watching this and sharing it around and taking like a small piece of it and be like, they said idiotic, proof. They called us idiots. How dare they? Josh bad. Josh bad. Geek man bad. Rex bad. Cry.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying who the idiots are. So if they want to self-describe themselves as idiots, that's on them, man.
Yeah, I know. We didn't say that. We did not say that.
it was a blanket term. I mean, because we've already talked about. I mean, I don't want to be miscited in saying the people that worked on the paper initially for oculodentis.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not. I'm sure
exactly.
I'll
Yeah,
tell you
same
the
here.
name of the
Same here, yeah.
animal. I'm not saying they're idiots, but I'm saying the arguments that come out of that misinterpretation, those are the idiotic conversations we have to deal with.
Yeah, instead of actually having productive conversations in
Yeah.
contrast. Yeah.
And the reason why they're idiotic is because they're detrimental to the science. Instead of me being able to talk about the science, I now have to focus on that. That's where the idiotic aspect of it comes
I
about.
agree. I agree, and I think that pretty much, well, now it expires the entire point of taking it out of context. If somebody decides to take it out of context at this point, then good luck to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now let's finish on a positive note, though. So guys, hope you enjoyed the session. I hope Josh enjoyed the session as well. I know he loves the sessions, and I did as well. It was fun. He had a mask thing. I had a helmet as well. So we
I gotta go get some groceries now, man. So I gotta do it. There you go.
Yeah. It's the beginning of your day, and at this point, because it's like it's almost nighttime at this point. Some people here in England, it's 10:30, so we're almost gonna be going to bed now. Some people are anyway, but since we don't have to get up to work, so we can just do whatever. So we will speak more off the record to decide when the next session is gonna be. And in the meantime, guys, make sure you leave the comments. Make sure you let us know what you think, what you want to see us talk about next. I know some people have requested us to do some specific artwork review, which we will try to prepare maybe a little bit better for the next time. And so that we can just really structure it a little bit to have clear criteria and everything. So we'll talk over it when we're off the record. Not now, but maybe later on the chat. And then we'll bring it to you. And we'll be happy to entertain and deliver whatever you want.
Yeah. And then on a serious note, and this will be my last thing, you guys stay safe out there. All jokes aside, practice social distancing. We're in a real crisis. Utilize your masks as smart as you can. Don't go outside unless you absolutely have to. And just stay safe out there. This is a real crisis that we're in the middle of. So, yeah, stay safe. You guys have all my love and support. Yeah, man, stay safe, Arson, everybody.
Yes, you too, man. And I'll just say, guys out there as well, to add, just to kind of give a very short sort of point. Just don't be crazy and don't be stupid, okay? You're not proving anything if you're gonna go against the regulation. Just follow the basic rules. Make sure you take care of yourself and people around you, and mind what you're doing, and remember to discipline yourself in this thing. It's actually quite interesting how much I have noticed that I have self-disciplined, in the process of trying to always make sure that I come in, wash my hands, do this and do that, and touch this, then clean it up. It's actually done magic to me personally. So in fact, I actually had quite a good, positive lessons learned out of it as well. So you can learn it too, but just remember, focus and relax, find something to do. You'll have lots of entertainment here. You got everything you need. You don't have to go out there to prove a point. Okay? So, everybody stay safe, everybody stay cool, and stay beautiful as well. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much for coming, Josh. We'll see you in the part 3.